in the Penn State community, holding several roles over the past couple of years. He has served as Vice President of the Consulting Services for the Nittany Lion Consulting Group, where he acquired and oversaw client projects for Fortune 500, nonprofit, and small business organizations. He has also served on the Executive Committee for Penn State THON as the Development Director, where he oversaw individual, corporate, and foundation donor involvement in the world's largest student-run philanthropy. Haskel has also represented the university in case competitions on the regional and national levels. Through these experiences, he has learned what constitutes strong leadership from those across the university and has developed his own set of leadership skills, which he will share with you tonight. Please welcome Haskel.
Good evening, everyone. As Kate said, my name is Haskel Canagarajah. It's great to bring you all home here in the conference today. I want to start this off by challenging you to think about the best leader that you've had to this point in your life. Someone that has grown you, mentored you, been a resource to you, maybe accomplished big things in their role. That can be a boss, a coach, a professor, a student, but whoever it is, lock that person in your mind right now. And when you do have that person, I want to add a little twist to things. I want you to think about your organization or your team without that person in charge. How would things change? Would your organization be the same way it is today? Would you be the same person that you are right now without that leader in your life? See, at every point in a leader's journey, no matter if they are good or bad, they have to come to a decision. And that decision is, do I want to step up and be a leader? Or do I want to remain in my comfortable role right now? And in that decision-making process, there can be a lot of fears and hesitancies about what could be next if you step up and be a leader. For many, that holds them back from being a leader or stepping up into a position that they want. Part of the reason you have that person in your mind right now as a good leader is because they were able to overcome those fears and hesitancies with leadership. Some may have even been able to turn that fear into a strength. And so tonight, I want to talk to you all about what constitutes good leadership, and especially call out the fears and hesitancies that many student leaders may have. I'm a firm believer that everyone can be a leader, regardless of your background, regardless of your academic standing. Everyone can be a leader with the right skills, the right fundamentals, and the right support network behind them. My hope is that by calling out some of the fears and hesitancies that may be present in leadership, we can start to unveil some of the mystery behind what it means to be a leader. And in so doing, we can help create a better leadership culture here at the university that helps unlock the potential of more and more student leaders. And so to tackle this problem of the fears and hesitancies in leadership, I want to start off by talking about some misconceptions. And specifically what I mean by that, by misconceptions, is small habits and things that we say that actually create an inaccurate perception of leadership and actually make it harder for people to envision themselves in leadership roles. The first is this idea that people were born to be leaders. A lot of people in this room may have said it in the past, I definitely have, either to a leader or just to a community in general. But here's the problem, no one was born to be a leader. Nothing happened at birth that made that person that you are thinking about right now more likely to become a leader. What is true is that over the course of several years, they received the right blend of support, of encouragement, of learning and experiences to make them feel comfortable taking on that leadership role. But saying that people were somehow born to be leaders now creates a perception of more mystery. It creates a perception that people were given certain traits at birth that make them more likely to become a leader, when everything in leadership can realistically be learned. And what that does is, for new and prospective leaders, it harms their confidence. It makes them question whether they have what it takes to go into a leadership role. So my challenge for you all today is, let's find a different way to simply say that leaders are good at what they do, because that would be a more accurate perception of leadership and won't harm the confidence of prospective leaders. The second point is interrelated, but it's this idea of a perfect leader. Just as there's no leader that is born to be a leader, there is also no leader that is a perfect leader. Every single leader makes mistakes at some point in their journey. I can say with full confidence that I have made mistakes in every single one of my leadership roles. But saying that some leader is perfect, even if it's an exaggeration, creates an identity that leaders are above the human standard. It removes the human element out of leadership. And what that does is it now creates a dangerous standard for prospective leaders to aspire to. They now think that leadership is all about not making mistakes, and that's not the case at all. Leaders are human. Leaders make mistakes. So again, let's change the narrative here. Let's admit that leaders make mistakes. Let's be open about that. And let's encourage that leaders also take risks at the same time, and that they shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. That all will make leadership seem more accessible to people in the Penn State community. Now, those misconceptions, they may seem really small details, but at the end of the day, if I am someone right in the middle between going for a leadership position and staying back in my role, it's those little perceptions that can move me ever so slightly in the opposite direction of not wanting to be a leader at all. And those misconceptions also feed into the fears of leadership, which I want to go into next. The fears that I'm going to talk about, they're not exhaustive by any means. Every leader, in some point of their journey, they have unique fears. But the fears that I want to talk about today, specifically managing people, the fear of making mistakes and not knowing all the answers, and the fear of adjusting to an experience beyond the normal, they're ones that come from my own leadership experiences, and they also come from conversations that I've had with leaders across campus, and especially ones that aspire to be leaders. As I cover what each of these fears mean, I also want to cover what good leaders do to mitigate them. And I also want to cover what we can do in the Penn State community to get our leaders and prospective leaders thinking in the right mindset of some of the best leaders. The first issue that I want to tackle is this idea of managing people. It is commonly noted in leadership that managing people is the hardest thing that you have to do, or one of the hardest things that you have to do. Let's face it, we as humans are complicated people. We have different personalities. Conflicts commonly arise between groups of people, and especially in student leadership, it can feel odd to tell another student what to do. In my position with the Nittany Lion Consulting Group, this was one of my biggest fears, and specifically within this, likability was one of my biggest fears. When I first got the position, I spent hours thinking about how I could make decisions that pleased everybody, how I could be someone that was liked by everyone, because I had a fear of going into a higher level, more higher profile role and not having even one person like me. But I soon realized that that was an irrational fear, because leaders are not put in place to make friends. They are put in place to make decisions that impact the health of the organization, regardless of what that decision may be. But here's how good leaders mitigate this fear and actually turn their fear of managing people into a strength. Firstly, they develop strong conflict resolution skills. Secondly, they figure out new and unique ways to motivate their staff and people. And thirdly, they take a people-first mindset. They understand people down to the personal level. They find unique ways to motivate them and keep them engaged in the tasks that they are doing. And thirdly, when they come into conflict situations where someone may get, emotionally sensitive, they make sure that they come in with an open mind. They listen, and they don't come in with predetermined decisions. I've also noticed that good leaders do something else that's really great. Good leaders grow better leaders. And I'm going to say that again because I think sometimes we think of leadership as just accomplishing tasks or creating a vision. But really the best leaders, they grow leaders that are better than them. Their investment in people pays off when the leaders that they are mentoring ultimately take on leadership positions and then accomplish bigger things than them. That to me is the ultimate success point of leadership. Now, what can we do in the Penn State community to sort of get our students thinking in the right mindset of the best leaders and mitigating this fear of people and managing them? The first is let's develop more resources and workshops targeted at relationship management. Many times when we create resources and workshops, they're targeted at technical skills. And while that's great, learning the soft skills, especially with people, is one of the hardest things a leader ever has to do. And especially beyond just developing content, let's figure out ways to market these resources better. Many times in the university, resources and workshops, they'll go underutilized because the word didn't reach the public in the most efficient manner possible. Let's focus on innovative multi-channel approaches to get the word out. Second, let's further this idea in our leadership culture that good leaders grow better leaders. Because when we take a people-first approach, our student leaders 4 to 5 years down the line will be even better than the leaders that we have in place now. And as that cycle continues, the effects will be multiplied. Doing these two things, I think, creates a better leadership culture here at the university, but it also mitigates the fear of managing people, because from the moment someone walks in on campus into a student organization, there's a people-first mindset. The second fear group that I think a lot of leaders may struggle with initially is the idea of making mistakes and not knowing all the answers. Let's face it, in leadership, there comes a lot of power and responsibility in many positions. Some more power and responsibility, some less. But regardless, there is power and responsibility in every leadership position. And that can scare people off because they think that they have to be perfect to take it all on, that they can't even make a single mistake. This goes into the second misconception that we talked about being a perfect leader. In addition, it's hard to go from being a general body member where you can always ask questions to now being a leader and you have to answer all of those questions. That can feel really uncomfortable. When I was going for my position in THON as on the executive committee, this was one of my biggest fears that I had. Because THON is a very large organization. There's information scattered all over the place. And I felt like I had to know everything coming in when really it's a continual learning journey. Additionally, with managing 5-6-figure donor accounts, it felt scary to have even the possibility of messing up. But I soon realized that it's fine to mess up. People aren't going to weigh it too heavily, depending on how you respond to that mistake. But here's what good leaders do to mitigate this fear in themselves. The first is that they understand that mistakes happen. The second is they develop a continual learning mindset. And the third is when they come to a decision, they communicate that confidently. And so instead of striving to be perfect, instead of striving to know all the answers, which they will never be able to do, good leaders embrace the uncomfortability of not knowing, of not being perfect. And in so doing, they ask questions to the people around them. They develop a strong network of people around them that can aid in their leadership. Additionally, the best leaders know that at no point in their journey will they ever know everything. And in so doing, they develop a really high level of curiosity, and that propels them further in their leadership journey. The last thing is that when they've learned, when they've analyzed all the pros and cons of a decision, the best leaders then communicate their decisions confidently to get buy-in from everyone. There is a learn period, but there is also a period where you have to make a decision and move forward with confidence. So what can we do at Penn State to develop this mindset in our leaders? The first is, let's continue to change the narrative. Let's admit that mistakes happen in leadership and that it's okay to fail. A lot of leaders won't even take risks in their leadership positions because they're afraid of messing up. But ultimately, risk is essential for growth. And so if you want your organization to grow, you have to be able to take on strategic risk. When we normalize the idea that leaders can make mistakes, this becomes more possible and our organizations can grow. The second is let's try and promote, to the extent that we can, a learning culture in every organization. What that means is let's put in workshops and resources to every organization. Let's have organizations develop these themselves. And let's have leaders learn the same way as general body members. When general body members feel that there isn't necessarily an expert barrier to becoming a leader, it now makes leadership positions seem more accessible. They can envision themselves in that leadership position more because they don't feel like they have to know everything coming in. The last fear group that I want to touch on here today is an uncomfortability with an experience beyond the normal. As humans, we tend to like routines. We like to know what's coming next. Leadership is none of these things. Leadership means taking on different tasks at different times. It means being reactive and putting out fires when they pop up. It means doing things that aren't explicitly listed in your role, which can be very different from other positions that you may take on in an organization or a company. But here's how good leaders mitigate that fear and that stress that comes with being a leader. The first is that they focus on benefits and impact. To good leaders, tasks aren't just numbers on a checklist. Tasks are an ability to influence others. Tasks are an ability to change the organization for the better, but also grow themselves in the process. That keeps really good leaders motivated. The second thing is that really good leaders are able to manage their stress and manage their calendars really well. One activity that I'd like to call out specifically that I've learned from some really good leaders is the idea of time blocks. They specifically schedule times in their calendar for life, for being not a leader. And that helps them manage the stress of being a leader because at every other point in the day, they are that leader that people go to for answers. The last is that they take things one task at a time. Many new and prospective leaders, they'll try to accomplish everything all at once. They'll quickly realize that it's not possible, but then they also would have realized that during that time, they could have created even bigger change by choosing a smaller set of priorities. Good leaders create that set of priorities based on their vision for the organization and the organization's need at that time. So what can we do to develop this mindset in leaders today? The first is let's continue to change the narrative around leadership. Let's mention that with uncomfortability comes a lot of growth. Students should strive to put themselves in positions that they don't necessarily envision themselves because they will get the hang of it, but they will also grow themselves in the process. Let's also aim for the highest level of transparency when it comes to leadership positions. Many times in this university, we'll have leadership positions and we'll have their descriptions put online, and those descriptions may be 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs. But they won't truly tell the story of what the day-to-day looks like for a leader. They won't mention the strengths and weaknesses of the position. And when we can do that, when we can be more transparent about our positions, then I think we'll see more applications come in and more student leaders envision themselves in those leadership positions. So, to conclude, anyone can be a leader. And at this university with over 1,000 student organizations, there are a plethora of opportunities to do that. Additionally, you don't need a leadership coach necessarily to be a strong leader. It's the network around you, it's the culture that you're a part of that makes you a strong leader. And so, as we work to create a better leadership culture here in the university, let's strive to do a couple of things. Let's strive to be better cultivators and encouragers of leadership. Let's create the right perceptions around leadership so people don't necessarily fear the idea of leadership. Let's remove the mystery wherever possible so that leadership can seem transparent. And lastly, let's support all of that with resources, workshops, and activities to build the skills of students in the most appropriate way possible. When we do that, we can unlock the leadership potential of more and more students here at this university, and that will set us up for even greater success in the future. Thank you.